So,
There's no one on yet.
so the new feed's live. What is if you want to tell people to move across?
What do you have to do then?
You might want to go and do it, Nadia, because that's just keep putting him to his like.
IT was definitely.
Sean, take over.
Yeah, that's happened in a while. So anyway, back to the beer in question, Dua Lipa. So just a small 8% now. So Lee mentioned earlier it's a double IPA, but a lactose IPA. So the Dua Lipa the name came from that. You guys have obviously been.
I've just got that. Sorry, I've just got Duo and then LIPA. Yeah.
It took a while.
Yeah. It's been a long day. Sean had me up at early hours, so.
One of the things. Since we moved to the new production site, we've moved up in the scale in terms of what class of brewery we are and how much tax we pay or duty we pay. So I can't talk about duty because Nadia's looking at me. But, it really does influence our decision a lot more than it used to. Because if we ever go above 7.5% ABV, we have to pay a lot more tax, and it does make a big difference now at the scale we're at. So we have to be super cautious if we go higher strength. So going to 8% isn't something we'll do very often. We'd usually go, if we're going to go higher strength and pay more tax, we'll go big and we'll go 9, 10 plus. So 8, you could brew a similar beer at 7.5%, which won't taste that much different for you guys at home, but it will cost a lot more because of the tax. So it's got to be the right beer to be able to justify going to that level. And I haven't tasted this beer, so I'm hoping it lives up to going up to 8%. So you might have missed it. This beer is called Dua Lipa. The Lipa bit, Matt just realised lactose IPA. So
Well, it just twigged.
Just if you're wondering.
Well done.
Thanks.
It's a nod to
So
Emma.
this is only our second ever lactose IPA. So what is a lactose IPA?
It's an IPA with lactose in one.
Exactly. Well, that's the most technical answer we can get.
So these more modern juicy styles are known for having a kind of softer, sweeter, kind of bigger mouthfeel finish to them. So one of the ways in which you can do that, almost you might call it a cheats way of doing that, is to include something called lactose, which is an unfermentable sugar. It's dairy derived, which unfortunately means a beer like this is not kind of vegan suitable, but is good for anyone following a vegetarian diet. So because it's not fermentable, it leaves a residual sweetness, but it also kind of builds a little bit of body, and it gives a kind of creamy like character to whatever product you put it in as well.
It's super fruity. I haven't tasted this one yet. I had a bit of a sample in tank, but the fruitiness is really coming out. It also, I think for us, the beer's, sorry for the live audience, it's a little bit warmer than we'd normally serve an IPA, but we had a few fridge issues before we went live. So because it's a bit warmer, you're probably tasting a lot more than you would if you were drinking this at home. It'd probably be a bit, still super fruity, but nowhere near as much as is coming through here, which is quite a good thing. But at 8%, it's going to make it a little bit more challenging to finish the can. But yeah, really fruity. The creaminess from the lactose comes through as well.
But it's not intended that the lactose becomes an evident component of the beer. You're not supposed to particularly know that the lactose is there. You don't necessarily need to disclose it as an ingredient on the front of the can, albeit it would have to be disclosed on the back of the can because it's an allergen. It's more about creating that residual sweetness, and we had a beer last year. Track did a beer called, I think they called it something like Gold Top, and I thought it was one of the better hoppy beers that I had in the entirety of last year. And they'd done this hoppy dipper, a double IPA, and then they included lactose in it. I thought that was a fantastic beer, and I thought, well, why aren't we doing more of that? Because yeah, we really shy away from lactose ordinarily, like, don't we? But
and it's also.
But it is only the second beer, I'm sure you said this already, only the second IPA that we've actually put lactose in ever in 6 years.
I think you're forgetting about the classic Milky Milky.
That was number 1. This is number 2.
Well, what about Bhutan Clam?
This is number 3. Okay. Yeah. And that's why you're the accountant and I'm not.
So it also has my favourite malt in it. Shit malt.
Just because you like saying that, that's why.
So the modified or sorry, not modified, the unmodified, so that we get lots of haze and body.
It's like malting light. You don't malt it as fully. You end up with more enzymes. It's considered under-modified. Is that how you would describe it? And yeah, I mean, how would you describe the contribution of it?
It's a weird one for me. Like, we use chit malt a little bit, and why I use chit malt is to help promote foam. And you mentioned in one of the previous beers, the foam is really good on your beers. We struggle with foam. I think it's to do with our water contribution and a few other things. And we've been playing around with chit malt for trying to get water foam, and it's supposed to add some body, but it also has enzymes that help make the wort more fermentable. So I'm not convinced that it helps with body that much, but it's supposed to really help with foam. That's why I use it.
And I think we have to speak up, apparently. It's common to use it in hazy styles, but the intention, I don't think, is to get haze in. It's actually, if anything, to take out some of the haze and actually make the flavours within it a little clearer. Or at least according to Scott Janish, who's the kind of oracle in our industry when it comes to hop science.
The beer itself, I wanted to move on to some questions.
Well, no, we're not quite on that. But I love what our branding company's done with the branding of this one. I said, you know how we always get like these cease and desists? I said, what you need to do this time is, it's not about the lady Dua Lipa. You need to make sure that you don't incorporate her image and it doesn't look like her, because that might once again get us sued. And here we have a rather attractive looking lady, which, if I'm not wrong, does look somewhat like Dua Lipa.
Pretending he's not a Dua Lipa fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've not heard of her.
So it was actually quite loosely based on the Rhubarber can. So Rhubarber Streisand can is obviously very much the lady herself represented on the can, and I think our branding company have decided that this is a good concept and let's use it on this beer. So I like it. I don't think we're going to get sued.
Well, yeah. On the plus side, we released this beer about 3 weeks ago, and we've not had a letter yet.
Every day counts.
So yeah, we have a fair few more questions. Starting with, what is the most interesting or unusual thing you have put in a beer?
Who's that? Is that us?
Whoever wants to field it first. Well, my friend off camera, Travis, has just literally flown in today from Texas, and he once brought us a beer, which was, can I say it? It was spelled PKLFKR. How would you pronounce that?
Pickle fucker.
You would pronounce that pickle fucker, apparently.
He's being cautious about what swear words he uses on camera.
And it's a sour beer made with gherkins, pickles, whatever it's made with. And he thinks it's amazing. I think it's truly atrocious. I think it's an abomination.
Very, very Marmite in terms of who liked it, who didn't like it. But it's definitely one to drink and try for yourself. So if anyone in the live audience wants to harass Travis, I'm sure he'll bring some across the UK for you next time.
But there's lots, Travis to you right over there. So there's plenty of people doing really weird, out there stuff. But what's the weirdest thing we personally have ever put in a beer? It's a hard one. We've done a lot of weird stuff.
Cashew paste. It's not that weird, but it was very annoying.
Well, no, it wasn't cashew paste. It was pistachio paste.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, we had a theory that if we used pistachio paste, because it was a paste rather than the nuts itself, it increased the surface area. No, what it does is it plugs your pipework.
And it plugs your vessels as well.
Oh, Jesus. We're not
Nice.
doing that. So that was a catastrophe. What about from your perspective?
It's hard to think about. I think one of the things we've used cautiously is sea buckthorn. We use that because it can be quite tart, We used it in 2 beers so far, and we've been very cautious on it, which is normally not the way we go. But yeah, we used a lot of weird words. Like last year, I couldn't get, not last year, the year before, I couldn't get cedar wood, and I used some cedar wood that's meant to be used for barbecues, and that didn't really
We've used
work the way I wanted it to. But
we've used licorice root. I don't know if that's weird or not.
Is that a laxative?
one beer we did was a beer called Marginal Grains, and
Good name.
and we did a collab with Broaden and Build from Copenhagen, who was the ex-chef from one of the big restaurants.
It's in
out
Matt
that way.
Orlando.
Yeah.
From where?
Matt Lando. is
Matt
the chef.
Orlando is like an ex-chef in Copenhagen.
One of the big restaurants there, that was like the top restaurant for a while. He was the chef from there, and he then set up this brewery, Borden and Build.
I think we spoke quite a lot to the guys just before COVID. We were across in Copenhagen at a beer festival, and we were speaking to the guys quite.
He was up on stage, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was kind of like a co-sponsor of the festival.
Yeah, I think so. They've unfortunately closed. I went to visit them. I missed the collab day, but I went to visit them when I went to Copenhagen just before everything went weird, and they had their floor was basically fucked, and the landlord had to rip the whole floor up, so they had 3 or 4 weeks of no brewing, everything outside, then bring it back and get it back in commission. So I think that didn't help them in the. It's unfortunate. They were good.
They were experimental. I remember they did a beer with Other Half where they made some brownies from the grains from an old beer. They made a chocolate beer, and then they used those grains to make a brownie, which they then put in the beer, and then they used those grains from the beer, from that beer, to then make brownies to then put in the next beer, and they called it Brownie Loop. So every single time they used the X grains from the beer from the brownie to make the next brownie to put in the beer.
I'm lost. I feel like I'm like an Inception. I'm in a dream within a dream within a dream.
It was essentially that, and it's just they keep on making a brownie from the grains to then put that brownie into the beer, and then using the grains from that. And it was called the Brownie Loop, and they just kept on doing it and doing it.
Even they themselves must have said, which one's this?
Yeah, it's like peak craft, I think, in that sense. But it really kind of mad experimental stuff.
So you
It's
ever
really
put
cool.
money, what's it called? Big ass money stout.
Oh.
Put money in your beer, yeah.
Pizza and dollar bills.
Pizza and dollar bills.
Don't think we've gone that mad, have we? Snake legs, I forget. I know that was quite a mad recipe,
Yeah.
but I forget what was in it now. But
Yeah, so
It wasn't Haribo snakes, was it?
but this beer we ended up had the recipe set. I can't remember. We had some guy foraging for us to get the ingredients we need, and everything was set. I went on holiday for a week. I went to a music festival in Slovenia, and I saw my email the evening after the brew day where the foragist was like, yeah, I can't get this ingredient, I can't remember what it was now, but he found fennel flowers, so he just picked fennel flowers,
Completely different ingredient.
put those
So you got a
into
nice
the,
little anaesthetic sort of tang to it.
so we called it the licorice beer.
Yeah.
And it was super licoricey. It was a wheat beer where we didn't use any hops, and the beer came out crystal clear, which is really weird. But the beer ended up being, I thought it was actually an incredibly good beer. We were at the stage where we were going to dump the beer because it was just so licoricey. But actually, what we were trying to do, in the end, actually, it was really what we wanted. And that beer with the curry was one of the best food pairings I've ever had with the beer.
Wow.
But yeah, the whole concept changed on the brew day, and I wasn't around to question it, so I had to accept it. And
But unfortunately, you had to eat some curry. I mean, it's not a major hardship, is it? To enjoy?
yeah, I enjoyed the beer in the end, but we were very close to dumping it. There's it upside down.
I've got one. Did the Siren team have thoughts on the place of nitro beers in a brewery's core lineup and limitations to process? That's from Gareth Maggs.
that's a Sean question, that isn't it?
We have a liquid nitrogen doser for our canning line, which allows us to do nitro beers. we do Broken Dream as a semi-core beer on nitro. We haven't got a core nitro beer at the moment. But yeah, it's definitely something we're playing around with.
It's a chicken and egg scenario. So the piece of kit that Sean was talking about to put nitro dosing at the end of your cannon line is quite expensive. So to have a quite expensive piece of kit that you only use once in a blue moon doesn't make too much sense. You kind of need it to be used regularly, but at the same time, is there enough demand for a nitro beer regularly? And we know that they make an amazing difference to that type of beer, but it's such a small scale of the market for breweries like ourselves that it's we brew some awesome beers. So the beer that we're going to do for our collab would make an amazing nitro beer. There's just no way we could make that work financially. So it's not something we'd consider. But you guys have got the technology, so it's something you guys could probably do. So it's
Are you suggesting we drive it down to Reading?
We've got the transport time. The transport time. Drive it.
No excuse for another night out.
I'll take it.
It's
Bring the cans along.
it's really interesting though. I do a lot of like kind of online tastings and tasting with people, and you know, some people think that nitro is a gimmick, and it really isn't. And I think you know, when people drink the beers, they really see, you know, what it does, and it brings out some incredible results. But you know, I think maybe you're right. You know, it's not maybe something you need to do regularly, but you know, the end product, and I think
it's something. Yeah, I see as part of our future, but it's something you build up to. You guys are what 3-4 years ahead of us. You build up a bigger following.
Yeah.
In time, I would hope that we will gain that technology and we will be able to do what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's a new ingredient to play with for us, and we're enjoying it. I think like the future for us, looking at playing around with sour beers with nitro and fruit beers with nitro to really get that creamy mouthfeel, but there's a few complications with it we're still working through and trying to figure out.
I think that's super exciting. We were discussing that earlier, and that bit wasn't even on my radar. For me, the two things I knew about nitro was it's going to amplify body in dark beers, and don't ever put it near a pale beer because it's going to strip it of all its volatiles, all the kind of aromatics. I forgot about this middle ground where there's the fruit and there's the sour and these other things where you can manipulate the body, and you've done, what do you refer to it, like milkshake or ice cream, or what was it?
It was Pompocello, you did it.
Yeah, Pompocello, we did it, so it's a grapefruit sour, and you have a carbonation bite on beers that are carbonated. Like you drink a Coca-Cola, you get that acid bite from the carbonation, probably more than anything. And we're just used to that. If you take that away, that's what nitro does. It takes that away and it just makes a smoother mouthfeel. And I think it'll work really well with sour beers and fruit beers. We've only just scratched the surface of it so far, so it's a lot for us to play around with. But yeah, we want to kind of lead that and explore it.
The first beer that we ever did it used it on was Broken Dream, and it actually made sense. And just Broken Dream on nitro is just an absolute revelation. Like, you know, Broken Dream is great, but Broken Dream Nitro is just next level.
The mouthfeel is just so much creamier, so much smoother, and then you're getting lots of other flavours from it because of that, those aspects. And we've tried it out now a couple of times on a couple of beers, and we've not been massively happy with the results. And we've said this previously on YouTube live sessions. And if you go upstairs, well, we can go upstairs after this, and if you try Big Toucan, which is definitely not a play on the Guinness Toucan, it's our dry stout, and it's on nitro upstairs, and it tastes cracking because it's nitro keg through the keg line, and you try the same version at home, hard pour it, and it's a good beer, but it's just not the same because we don't have the nitro doser at the end of the line.
But I think we've concluded from tonight's discussion that we definitely need one, so when can I buy one?
There we go. I'm going to, typical timing, I'm about to go to the toilet and Lee's going to either spend all our money or reveal all our trade secrets. One of the other, I don't know which.
Can I do both?
Both, yeah.
Okay, well, while you're gone, I'll ask these guys some questions. So, Matt, Sean, favourite UK brewery and why? No name.
I want to know this.
Sean, Mick, Sean.
I think it's it changes all the time, but like the one that comes out most of the time for me is Daya. I think they're my favorite brewery.
With crocodiles on the logo.
Yeah.
What is it about them that appeals? Is it that style? Is it the consistency? What is it that's attracting you to that thing?
I think it's the hoppy beers that I really like. I like drinking that style, but I've been lucky enough to go hang out with them for a little bit. We haven't actually collabed together yet, but I like the ethos of what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what they built. And I think it's good. And 6 years ago, they wouldn't have been on my list. And
arguably, you could say Steady Willing Man, beer of the last 5 years.
Yeah.
It's the very definition of the modern classic.
Yeah, I think it's good. I do really like what New Barnes and Edinburgh are doing as well. Like, I think they...
What little I've had has been good, but not a lot of it's making it down this way.
Yeah. I think I like their ethos and where they come from and what they're doing. I think there are loads of good breweries, so to just name two is like. Really
What about you then, Matt?
I mean, a couple about kind of breweries that stood out for me last year on the event circuit were, I think we mentioned Verdant or Verdant. I don't know whether it's Pastor or Pastore.
It's Pastore.
Pastore.
Do you know why I know that? Because I ordered some beer from them last week before, and they actually have a thing on their website that shows you the phonetic pronunciation.
Oh, nice.
So it's Pastore.
Pastore.
Yeah.
They must never do that. They must keep it the mystery.
Indeed.
They've got this incredible, I think it's like 2.5% like lemon sour, which was, saved me at kind of festivals. And then Full Circle as well. Absolutely loved them, but I think my standout brewery for the last couple of years has been Unbarred. It's probably a brewery that
Jordan, nice guy.
He doesn't. It doesn't make it up. Probably doesn't make it up this kind of part of the world that often. But I know Jordan comes from a background. He used to work for a water company, so his understanding of water profiles is next level. So the mouthfeel that he can achieve and the kind of the body he achieves on his beers is just absolutely incredible. And he's such a nice guy, and he's the guy that got me into beer. So I always have to have a little nod out to him, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be working for Siren. I wouldn't be in craft beer, and I wouldn't be the career alcoholic I am.
Jordan's a nice
He's a great guy.
Yeah, he truly is a nice guy, and he does make some epic beers. Unfortunately, the polar opposite end of the country to us, we don't get to see him all that often.
Yeah.
And you know what, man? That's why he said Daya, right? And that's why Daya are Daya, because of the mouthfeel. It ain't the flavour, it's the mouthfeel.
Well, the flavour's there as well, but
Yeah, the flavour's there, but
100% the mouthfeel is a
So,
massive thing
Like,
that they've got
there's
nailed.
There's easily 10 IPA producers in this country in there that makes beer as good as that. Brew York included, right? No, but seriously, and
Get the mic on him.
Get him on camera. Get him on camera.
We're going to have to pause it there because it's very confusing for the people at home if they don't understand what's been said. So basically what we're saying, that a big part of what Daya is doing is down to the mouthfeel, which will be 1, the water, and 2, the salts.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of it, but I also think they do a lot of other things. Like, I know they do yeast cell counts before they dry hop. They do lots of things like that. They're very particular with what they do. They got a lot of.
Is that to go for a low yeast count, or is that to make sure there's enough there for a biotransformic interaction?
Low yeast count.
Low yeast counts. Right.
It won't dry hop if the yeast count is not below a certain level.
So they must be going only towards the end of fermentation.
Right.
Well, right. Anyway,
So
we can geek out on that later. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Sorry.
So I've got a really good one here from Matthew. Thanks for all the questions.
That's right.
Nova Monk usually do a wacky April Fool's beer and make it a reality. Is this something you would ever do, or is it just a marketing fad?
Is that for Siren or
Well, I'll answer on our behalf. No. There we go.
So we do like to go a bit out there where we can, but I don't think we'd go quite as out there as those guys have done.
But we don't need one day in the year to be wacky. We do it all year round.
I think this is it seems like a marketing I mean, it's not that we want to be wacky, but like I always, so we want to tie things into seasonality. We want to tie things into events. Whether it's the rugby, the football, like it's just a nice thing to do. And I don't know if it's necessarily being wacky. It's fun to be wacky, and you want to do some kind of wacky things, but. I want for Oktoberfest this year, we really want to do some, really nice kind of like fest beers and.
Are you going to put Lederhosen on?
If you want me to.
Sell the beer?
Yeah, I'll do that.
We have beer circles.
Sean's Bierstukel, which maybe.
What does that even mean?
Maybe even health and safety permitting, I'll bring to your birthday. It's just a very, very hot stick. Sean will explain it.
Something I saw from the German brewer, I'll be quick. It's basically a long rod with a iron ball on the end, which they heat up with a blowtorch. And traditionally in Germany, when the cellars were not refrigerated, they're just as cold as they were, they'd use that to heat the beer up to taste it. Mm-hmm. And this guy was doing it at a festival I was at, where he was heating it up, and it basically, in a dark start, it makes this warm foam that's all caramelized, tastes amazing. So you take a sip and you get this warm foam through your mouth, and then the cold beer underneath.
Oh,
So Bierstukel, that's what it is.
Health and safety.
So picture me at your birthday with a blowtorch and a very hot iron rod.
With the combination of that,
in a long hot stick and a blowtorch, avoiding.
what could go wrong?
I think there'll be some paperwork to fill out for that, but it's great fun.
So
next question is to us from Wendy. When will you be doing a live tasting in Leeds? So we have a bar in Leeds, and we keep promising that we're going to do that. So we don't have a date on the calendar yet, but we do promise at some point we will do that. Any idea when?
Yeah, we've complicated it ourselves by doing the live tastings with brewers who we're collaborating with. So if a brewery's travelled all the way up from Reading to join us for the day for a brew, we were like, well, we can't ask them to then come to Leeds with us on the evening to do a live tasting after the whole day. So we've kind of shot ourselves a foot in a little there, but we will do it, and we'll let you guys know the details as soon as we've planned it out. It won't be next month because it's the birthday, but hopefully the month after. So we actually need to move on to the next beer because it's that time already. It's the 7.5%.
We do that.
I got you.
Silky.
Yeah, I got you
Silky.
covered. I got you covered.
So what we should do now is ask the ladies from Florrie to join us on camera. No. So we've actually. It's you.
It's me, this one, mate. Yeah. So this one is brewed, as we said, with the ladies from Florrie who are down to my left here, but it's actually a concept conceived between those ladies and also Nadia, our marketing manager, who's over on our right here. So the kind of pastry that put you guys on the map was the cinnamon bun. And that was recognised by Nadia, and she said, well, if we're going to do a beer with those guys, it has to be conceived around the thing that made them iconic in the York scene. So we decided to do the cinnamon bun, but as always, we couldn't just do cinnamon bun. We're like, well, what do you drink a cinnamon bun? What do you drink a cinnamon bun with? What do you consume alongside a cinnamon bun? Well, you're going to have a nice coffee with it, because you're popping out early in the morning, you're picking up a cinnamon bun, you're going to grab a coffee to drink alongside it. So we decided the beer needed to be a fusion of the cinnamon bun and the coffee. And then, because this was going to be produced for International Women's Day, we decided that again still wasn't enough. So we decided to source a coffee that came from a Brazilian source, and it was a farm, is that the right term, in Brazil, where it was a lady-only farm where they were producing this particular coffee, and that was sourced by a roastery in Leeds called Maude, M-A-U-D-E, I hope I pronounced that correctly. And that's what was chosen by our team and Florrie to incorporate into this beer.
And that's where Florrie gets all your coffee from that you serve from the bakery. So it's anyone in the audience probably already know this. So people in the live audience probably know where Florrie are based. Anyone watching from home, or anyone in the audience who's joined us from somewhere that's not York. Florrie's used to be just round the corner from where we are now. It used to be just a couple of doors down, but it's actually now just on Bishy Road.
I used to drive past your queue on my way into work.
Yeah.
You should have seen their queues, honestly. People knew when stuff was ready, and they waited.
So question
and
on
you've
my,
been so successful that you've moved into Bishopthorpe Road, or as we call it locally, Bishy Road, or as it has become known in the press, the Notting Hill of the North. So you are now trading out of there.
So when Sean and I stagger out of the local Travelodge, very hungover after a night with you, and we need a coffee and a cinnamon bun
on the walk to the train station.
It's not
on the walk to the train station to get us back to London.
And
where would you
there
go?
was a Travelodge at the end of the street, so rather than turning left to come to us, turn right and you're very near.
Across the bridge, look towards what people call York Castle, which is the round mound building that you will see as you're walking through.
Round mound.
Well, that's
and
nice.
then carry on walking, and then you've got the main road that goes round to, it's called Nunnery Lane. It goes round back to the train station, and it's not on Nunnery Lane, is it? Oh, it is Nunnery Lane. Yeah, I was going to say. I don't know if it was still called 7:30.
Oh, we won't be up that early. Let's call it 11 o'clock.
Just save two cinnamon buns and two
I keep
coffees
saying
and
this for you guys at home who aren't hearing what's going on off camera. It's just been suggested that these guys might want to rock up at 7:30. I think it's fair to say that is not going to be happening.
I'm not suggesting that.
What time's your train?
1:30.
I
was trying to be realistic.
They'll be kicked out of the Travelodge by 10:30, 11. So.
I think he was more worried about what time do you close.
Yeah. Well, there won't be anything left, unfortunately, by the time you guys.
Okay.
So, with this beer, we've done our usual thing. We tried to create this complex grain bill, as we do in all of our stouts. But then to do the spicing, we actually asked the ladies about the combination of spices that they use to create their cinnamon buns. And predominantly that was going to be cinnamon. It was also cardamom. So, and we went hot side both with the cinnamon and the cardamom. And then by the time the beer had fermented out, we felt like we'd lost a bit of the cinnamon character. So we then created...
cinnamon.
We basically dry cinnamon, yes.
Dry hopping.
We created a tea of cinnamon, further cinnamon, and then we took that liquid off and then we injected that into the beer to elevate the cinnamon levels. And what I was told was your buns are unmistakably cinnamon forward. We could not go subtle on cinnamon. It has to be cinnamon first. And I was concerned when we had this beer in tank that we hadn't achieved that. Drinking this beer now, I'm like, yeah, that's cinnamon. Yeah, that is definitely cinnamon. So I think we've done that. Yeah.
Do we do the little reveal? Right? Do you know what I was saying earlier about tax and 7.5% being the sweet spot? What strength is this beer like?
Well, it's 8 point something, isn't it?
7.5.
It's 7.5%, Mr. Taxman. But we have a little bit of tolerance when it comes to paying tax. So it's actually a little 8% beer, but we've called it 7.5% for tax purposes. No. You genuinely, when we brewed the beer, you get a little bit of tolerance. So when we were doing the tests, it was on track for 7.5%. Just happened to ferment a little bit more than we planned. So an 8% stout, I think we've ticked all the boxes on this one. It kind of exactly how I remember. My partner Sal's in the back of the room, and we were queuing way back before we moved up to the other site. We were queuing in the madness that used to be the Florrie queue around the corner, and I remember, and it was in there actually served us, and I remember saying, well, I think you said to me, "Oh, do you guys work at Brew York?" I thought, "Oh, yeah, we do. We'd love to do something at some point." And then Nadia had just joined us at the time, and I said that I think Nadia will pick it up, and I'm really glad we finally got to actually to bring it to fruition and actually brew. And actually brewed a beer and make it work. Yeah, it's really.
Yeah, we set out this year, and I mean that aside, we said, look, we need to do more working with local businesses, and Nadia brought this one to the table, and I'm so pleased as to how this has worked out. This is exactly how it should be. It's a brilliant beer. I think it benefits both of us as businesses, and I think this does represent what you guys do. So, cheers.
And if anyone has TikTok, go onto TikTok and follow Brew York and watch this video, because Nadia's really pissed off that she spent so much time on the TikTok video for this, and our concrete pouring video has got more views. So we need.
The amount of views. How have you not seen this? I tagged you in it.
Oh yeah.
But one of the things.
Don't view the concrete.
Yeah, big reveal. Whilst we got banned from Instagram, we decided to get a TikTok account. Which, news to me, is apparently not just teenage girls dancing.
But stop watching teenage girls dancing on it.
I thought it was an entirely teenage thing where they. Yeah. Well, anyway. Yeah. Moving on.
One of the cool things on the TikTok is I guess it was for camera. The cinnamon bun was dipped in the beer. If anyone wants to nip to Flores tomorrow morning, get a cinnamon bun, dip it in the beer, taste it, and feedback, I'd love to know how good it tastes. Because we got the cinnamon buns at like 11 o'clock last Friday, and I wasn't going to dip into an 8% stout at that time in the morning on a Friday. But yeah, you guys can all do that and tell me. So is this because Owen's just walked in the room, the owner of United by Design, who happens to be our branding agency? Come on,
Yeah.
So artwork, Nadia, come on. It's your concept. Come and talk about it. So actually, yesterday we made Nadia go on radio to talk about our birthday, and it was a really good interview. They played it this morning. So, you sure you don't want to come on camera and talk about it?
I've got
Right, Ant, have a look first of all.
Sorry.
Whoa!
I've got a question actually.
They keep asking me on the stream to come on camera, so you've got your way finally.
I've got a question for you, Nadia. I don't know, Nadia. I've got a question for you. I might be preempting this, but based on the Duo Leaper that I've only very recently got, and considering this is a spice beer, is the Viva Florieva a Spice Girls reference?
It is a Spice Girls reference. And on the
Nailed it.
On the
Well
back
done.
of the can, it says "Spice up your life."
Oh, well,
as well. So,
Nice.
so the artwork, me and the girls at Flory and Owen worked really closely together on, and we wanted this beer.
I'm making shows, yeah? Right, if you two squeeze in there together.
Yay!
Right, if I kind of hold that like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, who run the world? Yeah, so we worked really closely together on the artwork for this beer, and we wanted this beer to be a celebration of female empowerment and sort of, what do you call it? Female empowerment, and I can't think of the word now. Anyway, so we spoke to Owen really closely and wanted to convey the coffee element and the cinnamon bun element